Hey everyone, in this episode we'll be taking a look at White Boy Rick. We'll be exploring the true story, the performances, and our thoughts on the overall movie. All that and more in episode 76 of the Reel-ists podcast. Team Reel-ists, thank you for tuning into this episode. I am Oscar.
I'm Donnie.
And we have our producer, Ruben, here.
Hello.
He says hello in case you can't hear, just in case. Audio is low. Just turn up the volume now.
Thank you, Oscar.
But yes, as always, we just wanted to give everyone a big thanks for tuning into this episode.
Gracias.
If this is your first episode, your third episode, your fifth, sixth, or if this is your 76th episode that you've listened to us, thank you very much. We always appreciate all kinds of support, whether it's on the podcast or on our social media. Appreciate all the love.
We do.
If you haven't yet, are you crying? I was like, dang, it triggered an emotional response. But if you haven't followed us on social media yet, please do so. You can follow us at Team Reel-ists. That's Team REELISTS, no dash. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. We also have a YouTube channel where you can leave comments on our episodes. And we have iTunes if you want to review us. Keep that support going. We'd appreciate it always.
As always.
But I think we're ready to get down to the nitty-gritty on this movie here, White Boy Rick. Spoiler alert, so if you haven't seen it, be prepared to get spoiled. But Donnie, as always, what are your first thoughts about this movie?
White Boy Rick. It was a hell of a film, man. Based on a true story. It was tough walking away after we watched that whole story and we see, what the events that unraveled in the life of this young teenager named Rick or Richard or whatever his name is. And what he went through from like age 14 to 17 just in that short 3 years, and then the consequences of that kind of, what the consequences were way past that. A lot of drama, a lot of just crazy events,
Series of events. Yeah.
Series of events. And, unfortunately, that's what comes with, getting into selling drugs and getting into that whole, that whole lifestyle. But the film was really, really, what's the word I'm looking for? Very like real and raw and very just like, I felt like we were at some instances, I felt like I was just pulling the curtain back and spying on these people. Like it didn't seem like these were actors and this was a movie set. It seemed just really authentic in a lot of the scenarios. And I think
with the lookalike of Matthew McConaughey.
With the lookalike, right, a doppelganger of Matthew McConaughey. But this was something I mentioned to you earlier, Oscar. Like the whole cast as a whole, they looked like average people. Like it wasn't. This film wasn't about vanity or glamorizing anything or casting the most beautiful actors to play these roles. Sorry, I had a sneeze coming. It just went away. So it seemed like everybody that was casted, I mean, it seemed like it would be someone you'd see walking down the street, kind of average looking people. So that really helped. The setting, it was in, the winter time in Detroit, and looked like a beat up part of Detroit. So that was, or, I don't know if that was just the set, movie magic, whatever, smart choice in the person choosing the location. But it just, the whole tone, the whole, it's just like, I felt like I just got a great 360 view of this. And it was, it took place in the 80s, and it definitely looked like it with, I mean, that's when like the big drug epidemic was kind of happening, and, in the 80s, and, heroin and crack and all that stuff in cities like Detroit. So it just felt really, really real. So like, that's all I can say.
It's okay. Now. Well, we'll go in depth.
Please don't make me say more.
But for those that are just unfamiliar with this movie, This is the story of teenager Richard Wershe Jr., who became an undercover informant for the FBI during the 1980s and was ultimately arrested for drug trafficking and sentenced to life in prison. So this is the story of events that leads up to that conclusion. So I just briefly want to mention, it does star Matthew McConaughey, as we mentioned, and newcomer Richie Merritt. And then the other, I guess, familiar face you might see here is Brian Tyree Henry, I believe. Yes, Henry. So yes, those are the, I guess, stars of this movie to some capacity. And director is Yan Dimaj. I hope I'm pronouncing that name right. But my thoughts on this movie, it was really, really interesting to see this unfold. I was not familiar with the story of this person, so this was all like brand new information. I wasn't gonna know what the outcome is, and I think that to some extent that always works when you know it's a true story, but you don't know the story.
Yeah, and you don't know how it ends.
Yeah, because
that's a big one.
It leads you to the questions. I know when we were talking about at the end of the movie, we saw like a little bit of a follow up, and they had concluded it with he was released in 2017. So you're kind of just like, man, he did 30 years.
He was
in jail.
He spent the most time in prison for a nonviolent crime in Michigan history.
Yes,
right? and was the youngest. Wasn't it like the youngest offender prosecuted?
Yeah. So he definitely is in the record books. But the thing that's interesting too is just that I was reading up is he wasn't like saying it wasn't his fault or he was set up. He was essentially owning up to what he did. And I'm not sure how he came to the conclusion of just saying it's best to just accept it and deal with the consequences. Because he did miss out on a lot. He missed out on 30 years of living. He missed out on the growth of
his daughter. He missed the last years he could have had with his father.
And his grandparents earlier on.
And his grandparents. Yeah.
So it definitely was a very, very strong story to see. And it's always tough, because it is in the areas of the neighborhood that, this is very common, and this is most likely what a lot of people get themselves into, and it's never a good thing to get into it. I think what was the other movie that we were talking about that kind of had that?
Well, Peppermint, right? We were talking about the cartels and getting
into, yeah. So it was like it's always just that kind of the
getting
theme
into
of
drugs,
getting into something that it's either you're gonna
illegal
die.
Activity.
Yes,
like there's no graceful way out.
Right.
When you're like getting involved in the world of like drug trafficking, drug manufacturing, unless you're like a pharmaceutical company or something, you're doing it legally, I guess. But illegal drugs, cocaine, whatever, or you get involved with that in that lifestyle. Like I was telling you this, there's no. You're not gonna bow out gracefully and be like, okay, guys, I'm hanging up my coat. That was great, but thanks for the opportunity. Bye. No, you're either like once you're in it, you're in it. You can't. There's no. I mean, yeah, I'm sure there are some cases where it's like people get out of it and go on to lead straight, narrow lives. But a lot of it is you're either going to die or you're going to get arrested and thrown in jail or prison. Like those are your two options. Those are your two choices / options is what I was trying to say. It's either death. It's either, you want to die in a jail cell or do you want to die in the streets with a bullet in your head, unfortunately. So it's like, the moral of this episode is just don't sell drugs. Don't sell drugs. Don't
Stay in school.
Don't get involved with the cartels.
Get a regular job, even if it's a low paying, even if
it's a boring office job. Like it's better to live that kind of life than to like risk getting your head chopped off in Oaxaca.
Yes, but no, it was a very, very strong story to see. Just Rick going through like doing one, he was FBI informant, so he was doing this in a sense for the greater good, quote unquote.
So that's crazy. I mean, he didn't have a choice. Like they approached him, these two agents, and basically said, "You got to do this," in different choice of words, but you're basically going to be our informant. And he was what, 15 at the time, 14, 15?
About
So it's like he didn't have a choice, and they kind of tried to lure him with like, well, whatever money you make selling this drug for us, well, you can keep it, and of course, like it sucks, it sucks. He was a kid, he was a child, and he had to like
briefly just pause on the movie and just kind of clarify: did they So did the FBI are they admitting that yes they had him do this, or is it still part of that narrative that he was told to do this?
Well, the FBI didn't.
Because the FBI never.
I don't know. I mean, was it exposed? Like, I guess, is that your question? Like, is it exposed? Like, did they own up to this, or did they confess, or is it just we're just going off the word of Rick?
Exactly. That's what I just wanted to briefly, because it didn't. The movie never necessarily. The only thing the movie did was help us. We got the guy. Well, you know what? Now we have to just cut ties, cut all communications. We're done with you. You know, it's better.
This point that Oscar's talking about was like what, midway?
Midway, yeah.
And Richie had become an informant, and he was also in like this. It wasn't a gang. He was just rolling with these group of people that were selling drugs all over Detroit with the big shots. So he was on both sides, and I was scared to death for his life because I'm like, something's going to happen. He's going to die. Like, they're going to find out he's an informant and they're going to kill him, or the FBI agents are going to think that they're turning on them, so they're going to arrest him, whatever. Anyways, he ends up getting shot. He ends up being in the hospital. The FBI agents come and they say, you know, this might have been the good thing, Ricky, because we just busted all the people you were rolling with, you know, not necessarily because of you, but because of something else. So they're all locked up. So why don't we just, you know, he was like, in your best interest, it's just good to forget that this whole thing ever happened. Right there, he was out. He had a clean slate. All the people he was rolling with selling drugs were all locked up. The FBI basically said, we're going to turn the other cheek. This never happened. Like, wipe your hands off. We're good.
Yes.
He was out. So it pissed me off that he got back in it. Like, and I'm not saying, you know, if he listens to this podcast, Sir Rick, you know, I don't know. I'm only going off the movie, but it sucks that, you know, that you got back in it, because, you know, your life could have been a whole lot different, you know, for sure.
I want to briefly just mention,
come on, Dad. Let's hustle big. I know the players and I know the game. I say that at work. People are like, "What are you talking about?" I just like randomly say it when I'm cooking.
That sound audio was brought to you by
right. White Boy Rick in theaters now.
In theaters now. But no, the one thing that I really am trying to get an understanding for this story more than anything else was just the area he was in, because from what I read, his current home across with his grandparents, you know, living next to them, wasn't the worst of the Detroit. It was, you know, it was a nicer area. Mm-hmm. And I know the dad was doing a lot of things that were not legal as well. They weren't drugs related always, but he was always hustling
and things like that.
So, and his sister had, you know, gotten a relationship with someone that was
a drug dealer.
Yeah, so it was just very, very bad environment.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just really tough because this kid, and that's what I'm trying to understand. I wish that the movie would explain a little bit more of just his thoughts of why he feels like he has to do this. I get the FBI informant part of it, and I get the follow up of, you know, it's all right to make money and get out of our spot.
Yeah.
But it just, to me, it always felt like, why did he feel like he had to do this before? Because he was doing it before. It wasn't like he was, you know, clean before and he just got thrown in it. Because he was always around with the environment and he was selling guns to the drug dealers. So it would have been nice to kind of get a feel for why at his age he feels like he has to help his dad, or he has to, you know, bring in the money, or he has to elevate them. And, you know, and the mom, we didn't really get to see the mom as well. So it would have been nice to know that, you know, was that connection with the mom a big part of it as well?
Yeah, they didn't mention that at all. All we knew about the mom was that she left.
That's
all we knew.
So it was just one of those things where it would have been nice to kind of get a little sample of, we know that this was the only option. He felt like he couldn't go to his mom because, you know, maybe his mom was in a worse relationship or whatever the degree was.
Mm-hmm.
So that would have been just a little bit interesting, a bit more of his thought process. I know we were seeing a lot of the actions, but it would have been nice to, like, the line that you love to quote. That's a great example of, like, his thought process of, like, you know.
Yeah, like he was, like, expressing his frustrations with the life that him and his father were living, and
Yeah, but that was due to a lot, leading things up of a lot of things happening, having a kid all of a sudden, the accident with his dad in the snow.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so it was From what I've read, it seems very accurate on the true depiction of it, which I did want to just kind of mention the things that were accurate, just for those that are curious about this, that have an intention to see it, but maybe wanted to wait until me and Donnie reviewed this movie. That was so kind enough to wait. But yeah, so we did have, let's see, his parents were divorced. That was true. And his grandparents did really live across the street. And yeah, the Richard Sr. Did sell surplus electronics, sporting goods, satellite TV equipment, and devices to pirate cable TV, in addition to selling guns. He did get involved at a young age, and his sister was dating an actual criminal. So yeah, those just a lot of things that were very accurate. The scene that he got shot was also accurate. However, it didn't happen at his house.
Right. It happened with the people he was rolling with. Right.
Yeah. So that part, that was true. And then even the little small details about like his car getting carjacked, but when I thought it was at a gas station from what I read, not actual,
not a diner.
But yeah. He did drop out of high school. At 14, he was quote. I mean, this is the part that I'm not sure if it's confirmed by the FBI portion of it, but that he was approached by the FBI to help out on this case. Blah blah blah. But yeah, so there was just a lot of very accurate things that.
Yeah, that's good. Place. That's cool because a lot of times, all those facts get just,
and it goes down to that portrayal of this. It feels like a real movie. Mm-hmm. It feels like a documentary in real time, rather than like the whole narration and photos.
It does. And I think the casting had a lot to do with that. I really was so happy with the actor that they cast to play Rick. I think he was great. I don't know. I mean, we can't really find anything about him online. I don't think he has like a Wikipedia page or anything like that. So I don't know like what his acting background is, if any. I don't know if this was like his first acting gig or whatever, but I mean, I feel like he had such a good blend of like real, like there was a sense of realism, like this was an average ordinary kid, probably living in Detroit, that they just approached and was like, hey, have you ever thought about acting? That's what it kind of seemed like. But he had, even though he was doing these bad things, he was selling drugs and all that stuff, he was still likable, and you still felt for him because you still like he still had
a genuine innocence.
He still had a sense of innocence. He was still young enough that you were like, even though you're doing these corrupt things, I sympathize because I feel where you're coming from, why you're doing it.
He knows the players and he knows the
game, and he was likable. I don't know how else to say it.
And I think that in itself is a very good statement for the actor, to be able to give that. Whether that was the actual Rick personality, we don't know.
Yeah, I want to know how much of his own personality he infused into the character, or was that just strictly him acting and he's not like that at all, or he is kind of like that he had a similar upbringing. Like, I'd like to know that. I think they also did a really good for all the characters. Yeah, for all the characters. I think the actress who played Dawn, the sister, she was great. I mean, she was just...
They all gave, and that was actually one thing, they all gave performances that you couldn't tell if this was the character or if this was them.
Yeah. I'm even gonna say like, Matthew McConaughey is amazing, obviously, in every film he does, but I feel like just talking about the performances, the actor who played Rick and the actress that played Dawn, I feel like for me they were the standouts, like character, if we're just going off of portrayal.
I don't think they gave Matthew McConaughey much.
I think he just had to be like, they just wanted to establish that there was a solid relationship between father and son, which is great, by the way, because I feel like that's not portrayed enough in film. Like, I feel like either the dad's out of the picture, or the dad and the son have an estranged relationship, or there's conflict. Like, I feel like it was refreshing to watch a film where where it's the father and son who are the main, kind of headlining this, and they are this really close and have a strong bond.
Yeah,
at the end of the day.
Generally, yeah, it's like because there was no father figure in the house that the son usually feels they have to step up.
Right,
but this one was more of just like I want to help. Yeah. I feel like I can contribute.
Right.
So, but yeah, Matthew McConaughey didn't get enough on his own. A lot of it was with the other actors, and he kind of was more of just like, I'm gonna set the stage for you, but you need to take that spotlight and own it.
They definitely needed him to bring in the audience, I'm sure. I mean,
and that didn't even do well. that in itself didn't.
I know, but I mean, just that's probably why. I don't want to say that's why they cast him.
The credibility,
the credibility, yeah. Because other than that, I mean, there was Jennifer Jason Leigh, and she's not so prominent. I don't think right now, like especially with the younger audience, they don't really know who that is. But she was, obviously a A-list actress.
Brian Tyree Henry as well.
Yeah, so exactly.
So they brought the credibility to this movie in the sense that you can be like, oh, this is a legit movie, this is an indie film that was by this unknown director, and I mean, it wasn't like in that kind of tone, yeah. So this definitely helped it feel legit, I guess, to that degree.
It legitimized it a little more.
Just a little more. One that you're just kind of like, oh, there was actual production value and money put into this in time.
I mean, when I saw the trailer, I was like, Matthew McConaughey? I'm not gonna lie, that was the first thing I said, Matthew McConaughey? And then after that, I was like, dang, this is like a good movie.
So the only thing that they, I guess from marketing standpoint, that was more of like to fantasize this, to kind of put a little bit more of a like emphasis on this is like a big thing, this is a big story, was that they were kind of saying he was a kingpin.
Yeah.
But he was not.
Yeah.
He was just more of...
He was just a drug dealer.
Yeah.
He wasn't a kingpin.
That happened. I mean, when he got caught, he had a lot of, as they say, kilos of
he had,
cocaine.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It was like, he had like 800 milligrams, or 800 kilos.
Yeah.
And like, I think the max for something was like 650, and he had 800. He got busted with 800. So he just had too much on him at the time when he got busted.
That the judge says it was worse than mass murder. I was like, what?
Yeah, I'm like, I mean, whatever. That's to each their own, and that's a whole nother debate. But yeah, the trailer did make it seem it was like kingpin, informant, blah. Like it just kept throwing all these words, and it's like, dang.
Yeah,
you like youngest in history.
I mean, that's what I was thinking.
So
I was thinking like he was gonna be this like head, like top guy. Like everyone's gonna work for him.
Yeah, had this whole kind of empire under him,
which would have been. That's why I was a little bit interested, because I was like, he looks young. He doesn't look like, or because again, I didn't know the story, so I thought, oh, maybe we're gonna see the evolution from when he went young to being older. An older kingpin or something like that. But yeah, so I really was satisfied with this movie. It really did bring a lot of depth to the story. So the story was well covered enough for you to understand the story, and to follow up with the where everyone did, and what the father passing away in 2014, and then him going out in 2017, and his daughter now is living on with her own kids and married. I don't think they mentioned Dawn. Did they mention Dawn?
They didn't. I don't think, because I think I asked you. I was like, "What about Dawn? What happened to her?"
Yeah, I don't think they mentioned. And then to find out and looking it up afterwards that he went back to jail for a crime he had confessed regarding his sister and his mom. It was some kind of like stolen vehicle crime that he had to go to Florida to serve time again. So
you know how much time he's serving now, or did?
No, I don't from the top of my head. No, but yeah. So it's just very unfortunate. It's like, man, this poor guy has no luck.
I know, man. Seriously,
the movie made it seem like he had a way out. I don't know if that's how it felt. Maybe the movie kind of gave that picture of he had a way out, and
I'm sure they didn't want to put a damper on. I mean, you were already kind of have a damper on it because he served 30 years in prison. But I think that would have been overkill if they would have been like, he got out, but then he had to go back. And I'd be like, are you serious? Come on, Rick.
Thought you knew the player.
I know. You're supposed to know the game and the players.
But yeah, so was there any particular scene that stood out to you?
There were a couple. One was... It was just such a good movie, man. One of the scenes I really liked was... Not that I liked it, but when they went to go basically get Dawn.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
He, like, Matthew McConaughey picked her up, and she was, like, fighting and screaming. And that just seemed... It was hard to watch because you can only imagine how this father must feel, like holding his daughter, this adult daughter, and just the state that she's in, the condition that she's in,
and the whole scene afterwards.
And then you see Rick standing there, and he's teary eyed, and how this, is just affecting the whole family. That was tough. That was a tough one, but it was
and the follow ups too. The withdrawals and
her withdrawing and them locking her in the room, and it's I mean, fortunately it helped. I think. I mean, I don't know that. Who knows? About if she relapsed or went back. Hopefully not. But that was one, and I mean, there were a lot of scenes there was a lot of scenes that were really well done, and then I really liked the ending when he was in prison and him and Matthew McConaughey were talking, and he said, stay strong, you're my best friend. When he said that to Rick, like he was saying that to his son, like, you're my best friend. I damn near shed some tears at that point.
I could see, it was an emotional one.
And then obviously the one I already quoted, his whole kind of spiel of let's hustle big, Dad. I know the players and I know the game. And he said, I got a daughter too, and it just seemed like in that moment Rick was trying to make a really not saying that the decision was right or wrong. Obviously, I guess it was wrong because he had serving time in prison for it. But he was trying to make a grown-up decision right there. And he really, I mean, at 15, or sorry, he was 17, I think, at this point, 16 or 17.
17.
But he was trying to make the best decision for his whole family. And even though he made a bad decision, his intentions were good, and he was trying to make this decision for not only his father and his sister, but his new daughter and probably the mother of his daughter as well. And when he said, I have a daughter too, it seemed like he was really, trying to grow up and mature in that moment. As ironic as that may seem, because he decided to sell drugs. But yeah, those three scenes probably stood out to me the most. What about you, Vato?
The one that stood out to me, well, it's not like it's more memorable more than anything, was just the scene. I'm assuming this is with the girl, the daughter's mother's, like, I don't know, little brother or cousin, nephew, with his grand entrance of like, you a daddy now, you gotta come over, what's up, grandpa,
you need to step up, be a man,
and
it's like this like little like 6-year-old boy.
I really would like to know if that was as true, if that was made for the movie. I don't care. That was a great choice to have that comedic timing for that.
It really was. And then didn't he said something like, if I don't see you there, I'm coming back, and you don't want me to come back.
He really did.
It was so funny. It was like adorable.
Like 7, 8, nothing like that was like, that was classic. And then when we saw him again, he owned his scenes that he was giving, his lines that he was giving.
He for sure did.
So
great actor, that little kid, whoever that is,
for giving that performance. So that was great, but that was just memorable. But to me, I really enjoyed all the father-son moments, even from the beginning about when they were at the gun show and they didn't trick the guy, but they got the price lowered for the guns that they wanted.
Yeah, because he wasn't selling the guns he was claiming to sell.
Right. It was, to me, the relationship was the strongest point of this movie between the father and son, because it was a tight bond with the sister being around, but unfortunately the sister, was at that age where she felt like she can be on her own. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the bond was really close, and I really feel like it was an innocent bond too. It wasn't like, you're my son, you're gonna follow my rules. It's more of like, I'm taking care of you, but I got to do this a way that I can do it, not like, get a standard job or anything. And just all those scenes, every time they interacted, I felt like they had conversations that were really exploring, how the dad sees life and how the young son is seeing the kind of maybe opposite or a different perspective.
Different perspectives, opposing viewpoints, kind of.
Because it was just like a lot of times when he was just like, you should go back to school, and he was like, I don't want to, but then he would like come back and he was like, I am going to go to school. So it was like a lot of things that you were just like, it took time, just like a regular kid, to get things to click of like, oh, maybe I should listen, maybe I should not do this.
And they both seem to have influence on each other,
Yeah.
Like, whatever they both would say to each other, they both would take it, like, it would sink in sooner or later. Both, in both directions. Father, son, father. So, yeah. I think it was a good on-screen father-son relationship.
Yes, exactly. So,
Absolutely.
What's your score for this one?
Well, for with all that said, I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5, and I mean, you know, it's kind of, I can't say like, oh, I wish they would have done this, I wish they would have done that. Like, it's a true story, so it's kind of hard. I'm honestly giving it 4 out of 5 because I'm giving it not a 5 out of 5 because, I mean, as a movie, it was great, but it was just a lot to take in emotionally and to just witness. And, you know, it was sitting on my conscience for a lot of, you know, like the night I saw it, and I was, you know, I was thinking about it when I went to bed, and I was thinking about it the next day, and just like, it was just kind of like, dang, you know. And that's great that movies do that. I always say that when they keep you reeling, you know, even after you've seen it, even the next day. And so it did that. But it was just like, you know, I was like, man, I don't know if I can keep doing these kind of movies because it just gets me too emotionally invested and plays with my, you know, my heart and my mind. So
breaking news. Donnie's stepping away from
dramatic
drama films.
True story films.
We'll be sticking to comedy and animated.
But no, I mean, it was good. And yeah, I mean, you know, I said all I got to say about it, I think, but
no, you got 20 more minutes.
But a solid 4 out of 5. And I mean, maybe 4, I don't know, 4 out of 5. I want to say 4.5 out of 5 because, I mean, it was, you know, it was great. The acting was great. The set, everything was really good. So I'll stick with 4. I feel like I'm in that stage where, like, I feel 4 isn't generous enough, but I feel like 4.5 is too generous. But I'll stick with 4.
All right, 4 it is. Exactly my score as well, 4 out of 5. Reels, and that's just because this movie, as great of a story it was, as a film, it did have some flaws to it that I felt like could have been a little bit more enhanced. I know you were saying that you enjoyed the realness or natural portrayals, I guess, by the actors. Mm-hmm. To me, I felt like they, for a movie's sake, it has to be a little bit more polished for us to understand. Like even the grandpa and grandma, like they were in there, but it was a question of
Bruce Dern.
Why were you in here? What's the reason for you adding to the story? And I get this is a true story, so it's a little bit different, but there'd be a reason why they're including them. Like in the same reason that they didn't include the mom, there'd be a reason why you would include them outside of, you know, historical facts. So if there was just for like, oh, they are around, they could have just always been mentioned, but they were chosen to be included. I feel like the grandpa had a little bit to provide. The grandma really was just there to show that she was there. And it kind of was like that for a lot of characters too. A lot of the, like his drug dealer friends that were a little bit more closer to his age, that he connected with. To me, it was like, how are you connecting with, you know, with Rick? And what does your relationship mean with Rick? So to know that if, you know, Rick's being accused of, you know, selling information or giving away information away, and, you know, was there a betrayal? Because we never saw the friends. I mean, I know they got caught, but like, yeah, we didn't. He did. To me, it felt like Rick was like, "All right, well, they got caught." Like, it didn't seem like it was a devastation to see, like, I'm not going to see my friends anymore. Right. The way it seems, like, I could see how the Kingpin himself, like, if he's gone, he's gone. Rick never had a connection to him except his wife, which the affair was true as well. But I am giving this major props for accuracy from what I've read. There's very little things that were different, but the things that were different were more of just, again, movie context, movie reasons. So, yeah. Right. So to me, just there was a little bit of polishing that should have been done to kind of make this a little bit memorable long term. This is one that, if this actor does more movies, if Richie does more, then this would be one that would be a highlight, but it depends on what his outcome is.
I sure hope he does, man.
It's not one of Matthew McConaughey's standouts. There's a few others that probably go above this one, so it just depends on that. But yeah, I mean, it was a really great story. I mean, it's an unfortunate story for sure. Yeah. To be put in that young age and go through all that, and to, you know, serve 30 years and miss out on a big portion of your life. Yeah, it was really unfortunate, but yeah, it still managed to connect with the audience, at least with both of us. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, 4 out of 5 is definitely going to be my score.
Sweet.
So hopefully everyone, you've seen this movie. If you haven't, go check it out. We definitely recommend it. And let us know your thoughts. You know, we're on social media, on YouTube, on iTunes, anywhere you want to communicate with us. If you even want to send us an email at thereelistpodcast@gmail.com, you can do that.
They can?
They can. So, yes, we just would love to hear your comments. And let us know if you agree with us, if you disagree with us. Did you think it was a good biopic? Did you think it wasn't? We would love to hear it all. So, thank you everyone for listening to this episode. We hope you enjoyed it. Until next time.
See you.